You may have forgotten about this one. And depending on who you are, you may not have ever even known it happened. Either way, every now and then, someone steps onto the political stage looking like destiny just handed them the crown. And then they blow it, not with war, not with scandalous tapes or classified documents. Nope, this one ended with a photograph. Political careers have ended in disgrace. Some fade out with scandal. Others collapse under public pressure. But rarely, almost never, does it all end with a single snapshot. One moment, one click, one image so undeniable. It destroyed the future president of the United States before he ever got the chance to step into the Oval Office. So how did a rising star with charisma, brains, and a clear shot at the White House get taken down by a camera flash and a bad decision on a yacht? Let's unravel this one together right now on the Anything History Channel. It's early 1987. Ronald Reagan's presidency is winding down. The Cold War is still alive, but Americans are turning inward again, tired of scandals, inflation, and 2 decades of chaos. Democrats are desperate for a new face, someone sharp, someone fresh. And that's when a man named Gary Hart walks into the spotlight. Tall, handsome, well-spoken. Gary Hart wasn't your typical politician. He was smarter, cooler, the kind of guy who quoted philosophers on a campaign trail and looked good doing it. Born in Kansas in 1936, Hart had a quiet, conservative upbringing, a preacher's son, married, 2 kids, Yale educated. Eventually, he became a U.S. Senator from Colorado in the 1970s. Right in time for the fallout of Watergate, he branded himself a reformer, a new voice, the anti-Washington candidate. And by 1984, Hart ran for the Democratic nomination for president against Walter Mondale. He almost beat him. He was the future. Even Republicans admitted it. So when 1987 rolled around and Hart announced his campaign for 1988, where he would be battling Michael Dukakis for the Democrat nomination for president, everyone assumed the same thing. This guy's going to be president, because the polls even had him beating George H.W. Bush. He was packing arenas. The press swooned. Voters leaned in. It was all coming together. But behind the scenes, Hart was playing with fire. Rumors had followed him for years. Affairs, arrogance, a secret personal life. Journalists whispered, but never found proof. Hart mocked them for it, literally dared them, reality TV style. "Follow me around," he said. "You'll be bored." Big mistake, because one Miami Herald journalist, he wasn't bored. It's May 1987. Hart boards a yacht off the coast of Florida. Aboard the yacht is a woman named Donna Rice. Young, beautiful, and not his wife. There's champagne, cameras, sunshine, and someone still unknown to this day snaps a photo. In it, Gary Hart, 51 years old at the time, is sitting dockside during a trip to Bimini in the Bahamas. On his lap is Donna Rice, who was 34. It wasn't taken on a yacht itself, but on a dock during the same trip, aboard a boat named Monkey Business. Hart is wearing a t-shirt that reads Monkey Business Crew. And Rice, contrary to some of the scandalous rumors, is not scantily clad. She's wearing a white long-sleeve sweatshirt and a tennis-style skirt. The photo by itself looked almost innocent. That is, if Gary Hart had been single, but he wasn't. The photo leaks. The story breaks. Everything collapses. The press and the public latched on. This was no longer about policy or ideas. It was about character, honesty, and judgment. Hart denies any wrongdoing, claims the photo was innocent, but the media frenzy is unstoppable. He's grilled by reporters, humiliated by headlines. And there was an added story about Donna Rice visiting Hart's townhouse late at night and possibly sleeping over. So, just 5 days after the story hits, Hart drops out of the presidential race. His campaign? Finished. His career? Dead. All from one image. And it didn't even show anything explicit. Just implication. Suggestion. But that was all it took.
That reduces the press of this nation to hunters and presidential candidates to being hunted. That has reporters in bushes, false and inaccurate stories printed, photographers peeking in our windows.
Plus, the other floating rumors only made the situation worse. Hart went and convinced himself that he could weather this mess and tried to re-enter the race a month later, but it was way too late. Here's the sad part. Gary Hart was probably going to win. Political analysts say he had the charisma to get past Dukakis and beat George H.W. Bush. Some even argue he was the only Democrat who could have stopped the Bush dynasty from taking hold. Instead, Dukakis would get the Democrat nomination, but Bush would ride Reagan's popularity past him into the White House. Some still say, if not for that photo, the 1980s might have looked a little differently. Yep, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. But sometimes, especially in this case, it's worth a whole presidency. Gary Hart's downfall wasn't just about infidelity. It was about ego, about daring the world to catch him, about believing he was too smart to fall. And in a single photograph, he did. Was it fair? Was it political sabotage? Did Atwater set Hart up, as said in his deathbed confession? Or was it just the truth, caught on camera? The reality? No picture, most likely no downfall. Now, until Hart, the sex lives of politicians, including presidents, were largely considered off-limits to journalists. The Herald's coverage of Hart and Rice changed how reporters were expected to cover politicians. Once the door was open, it became much easier and much more attractive for journalists who, in the past, might have looked the other way, and whose publications might have said, well, we don't really go there. After the monkey business scandal, Gary Hart returned to private law practice, worked with Homeland Security, and became United States Special Envoy for Northern Ireland. Then, unfortunately, later his wife died in 2021, and then Gary Hart would pass away on January 27, 2022, at the age of 78. He died from pancreatic cancer at his home in Sacramento. Donna Rice, the woman in the middle of all this, dropped out of the scene and later got married to Jack Hughes. They had a couple of children. She should have turned 67 in 2025. So, overall, would Gary Hart have won without the photo? That's something history will never be able to answer, but it does leave on the timeline the picture that destroyed what might have been. Tell me what you think, and please support the channel in any way you can. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one.